Oh, you got it, I believe. Okay. How good are we?
Okay, do we, I know it's now 1 minute past 4. Do we start or I think
Yes,
we
yes,
do, right?
we should be able to start.
Okay. Hi guys, I'm Jorem Awadu. I know I'm a regular on this. I've been here for the what? Maybe probably the last 5 years or so.
It's more than that,
It,
Joram.
this
Don't make
even
it.
more. This is now unique that we are having it online because of the situation we'll be talking about today. But again, you're welcome to the African Tea Time. The code is we usually would have tea in the corner somewhere, but hopefully you can get a tea bag somewhere, of the local tea that you like, and then we can sit back and discuss. So today we are having we're continuing with this series of talks related to how the COVID-19 has impacted education. And today we'll be looking at Tanzania and Egypt. And so I know a lot has been said, but it is good to hear it from our individuals, our our colleagues that actually are currently residing in those countries or have an attachment and have, people by extension still, people at home that are dealing with this. So we hope to hear from Abdul Mutashobya, who was here. It's been a couple of years. Yes, and Aisha, and then we'll also hear that is for the Tanzanian aspects. Then we'll hear from Dr. Ayman Mohamed. Did I pronounce that well?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, great. So we'll be hearing those perspectives, and of course, just as a preamble, and I know Abdul will be talking about this later. We see two countries, and maybe right or not, but we see two countries where one, Abdul, there were serious issues around. Do people stop going to school? Do people wear masks? Is this, pandemic even a thing? Versus, another angle where it was, taken also see as saying, hey, let's stop school. And I think probably because of the second wave, Egypt is probably looking at, they're still studying the situation as well to see if, education should even continue or, things like that. So we'll be talking about, this today. So the plan is to have, again, Abdul go first, and then Aisha bring in the student perspective as somebody who is doing a MA, a master's in public health, and how this has impacted her and, students at that level of, higher learning. And then we'll, you know, transition into the Egypt aspects and, have a Q&A after that for all, both our presenters or all our presenters. So again, welcome for this ride. Pick a cup of tea and, let's continue. So Abdu, is it okay if you started?
Sure.
Okay. Oh, yes. Yeah. So feel free to go on. And one of the things I want you to address is, give us a glimpse of how your government has dealt with, the education. I know you're going to talk a lot about, Tanzania in general, but also take a dive into, what is happening on the ground. So yes, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Uh, can you guys hear me? Because
Yes, we do.
as I'm seeing my screen is saying I do not have a. I'm very, very excited to be here talking with you again. Um, Maybe I should go ahead and share my screen for a bit of introduction.
Okay.
Yeah. So my name's Abdul Mutashobya. As you could all see, I am expected student for 2021. And I currently teach at United World College in East Africa, is in Moshi, and I'm a former FLTI. So that's a bit about me. Let me see if I can. an overview of the country Tanzania, and then of course I'm going to focus more on COVID situation in Tanzania, specifically in education, how it has exposed the inequalities of it. And I can respond to questions. By the way, feel free to ask. All right. Karibu Tanzania means welcome to Tanzania, the soul of Africa. And it is in those who have not been to Africa, is the continent, not a country. So this Tanzania, it's a part of that continent. It's a country in the continent of Africa. It is in the eastern side of the continent, a bit south, and it borders with Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Burundi, a bit of democratic part of Congo. Yeah, Congo and Zambia and Malawi and Mozambique. And our colors are green, yellow, black, and blue. Black. And green is for natural vegetation and agricultural resources. And black is for people, and blue is for water resources. To take this off, yeah, perfect. So the population of Tanzania is nearly 60 million people, and that's the most recent statistic. And it has more than 130 tribes. The capital of the nation is now in Dodoma. It has been moved from Dar es Salaam. It used to be in Dar es Salaam, but now it is in Dodoma, the mid of the center of the country, somewhere here. And the area of the country, the land is around 900,000, and water is the island is actually 900. The water is actually 800,000. State of California, those who are familiar with that state. The languages we speak are Swahili, English, and so many other local languages. My first language is Haya, and my second is Swahili, and then English. We do have so many religions, but the most popular ones are Christians and Muslims, and then we have other religions, mostly indigenous beliefs. And our currency is Tanzania shilling, which is, for example, for $1 is 2,300 that you can eat a meal for a day for that money. So I mean, it's a lot of money. By the way, looking at life expenses in Tanzania and all that, and life expectancies are 65 years age. People actually go above that. It's okay. And the GDP is 930 USD, and that is the most current data. So what is Tanzania? It's what you see. You see people smiling, you see people welcoming, you see people giving you full attention. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, yes, we do. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So there might be a different story looking at this situation, especially the current situation with the elections. But it's the nature of Tanzanians to be welcoming that context. if you come here, there's so much to see. And one of it is Serengeti National Park, the home of the world's largest movement of animal. They call it the Great Migration. And then we have the mountain, the highest mountain in Africa. And it is actually in Moshi, so I see it almost every day. And then we also have the biggest city in the country, Dar es Salaam city. I've lived there for like 15. So glad now I've moved to a quiet kind of location in the northern part of Tanzania. We also have Lake Victoria. That's where I'm from. Actually, I grew up northern west of Tanzania, largest freshwater in Africa. In the world. Maybe I have to research about that as well. We also have Ngorongoro crater, one of the 7 natural wonders of Africa. It is in the middle of the country to occupy huge space. We'll look at how many kilometers per square it occupies. The government of Tanzania. So we currently have John Pombe Magufuli as the current president, but the first president was Julius Nyerere, was in power since independence, but by then he was a prime minister. He became Tanzania mainland and Tanzania Ireland, like Zanzibar and Tanganyika, united to become one country. And then the second president was Ali Hassan Mwinyi, was in power for 10 years, and Benjamin Mkapa for 10 years as well, and Jakaya Mrisho Kikwete for 10 years. So seeing and waiting to see how long Mr. Magufuli will stay. The ruling part is CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi, and that was since independence, I believe. And then we do have Chadema as the main opposition part. The economy of the country. And sugar, beer, cigarette, twines, and also we have mines. And then local mining industries. We do have Tanzanite. It's only here in Tanzania. And then diamond gold. We also have oil mining, oil refining. We export minerals and agriculture products. We'll see what agriculture products we export. Tourism also is part of our foreign currency resource, but it has been, shrinking just because of the impact of Corona at the moment. We export products of cattle, for example, coffee, sisal, and vanilla, and so many other agriculture. Also have cotton and cashew nuts. I believe those are the most popular ones. The culture of this country is so dynamic because we do not, I believe, we do not have a culture that we can refer to as a Tanzanian culture because we are so many tribes and people have different way of looking at things. But the most common food in Tanzania is matoke and nyama. That is actually the plantains and common, and ugali samaki. That is ugali. I do not have a word in English for ugali because it is kind of made here recipe. It's like it's actually made from maize,
like cornmeal,
flour. Yeah, the economy, yes. And yeah, just because we have legs. My favorite.
Oh,
It is senene, weird food. So those who are from Uganda, if we do have anyone, yeah, the
yeah.
audience, they know what senene means. Some people actually call them grasshoppers. I don't think they are, but that's a very important food in my hometown in Bukoba. And then that's how we eat matoke beans. So it is a it is kind of a share. Sit around it, and I made those moments. Some facts about the countries. I'm going a bit quick on this because I believe the discussion is going to be more on corona. So, with more than 4 million wild animals, including 430 species, subspecies, Tanzania, the largest concentration of animal in the world, I believe. Ngorongoro crater is the largest volcanic crater in the world, as you would tell. We do also have the most expensive hardwood tree in the world, the Mpingo tree, or African blackwood trees. We do also have the largest lake in Africa and the deepest lake in Africa and the highest point of Africa, which is Kilimanjaro. So the largest lake is Lake Victoria, and we also have Lake Tanganyika. That is actually in the border of Tanzania and Congo and Zambia and Malawi. And the earliest human skull was found in Olduvai Gorge in Tanzania. That means the first human being was from here. The Ruaha National Park is the home of the largest population of white elephants in East Africa. And Tanzania, that's so interesting. By the way, the song is in Swahili, the national anthem is in Swahili, but the tone and melody, and I believe the words, some words, are similar to the Zimbabwe national anthem in South Africa. All right, here we go. So we look at the COVID situation in Tanzania. The first case was reported on the 16th of March, and it was an imported case. I think that patient traveled from Germany, from Europe. And then on the 17th of March, the Prime Minister announced the country lockdown, including school closure. So it basically was only school closure for a certain period of time. I believe it was for 3 months, because on the 29th of June, the country reopened the schools and universities and everything. So at this moment, other gathering continues. Gathering like people going to the markets, gathering like people going to church, to place of worship, and then gathering like, the other gathering that they stopped was marriage and celebrations. Like any celebration related to that was kind of stopped. But even the parliament in some budgets at the moment, and they said we're not going to stop just because of these. So when the school closed, what happened? By the way, my school closed, as many other schools in the country, or maybe all the schools in the country, but we were able to move learning online. And not so many schools who do that, because we do have very few international schools in Tanzania that have capacity to utilize technology to move learning online. And students from public schools and private schools were sent home helplessly. And this was quite obvious because things like owning a telephone or having could be something like a smartphone or any phone at all, or having any type of device at school, Tanzania education system. If a student is caught with a phone or something, then they're in trouble. They might be expelled. Or there was a case when someone brought a phone at school and then they connected wire to be able to charge it, and then the school went to fire, and these kids were beaten in public.
Oh.
By the way, that was part of the punishment, yes, by the regional commissioner of, I think it is in Mbeya, southern part of Tanzania. So those could be some reasons why they're not allowed to bring devices, but others like the use of devices for the kids. The world is changing, that might change, who knows? But it impacted a lot because there was no way students could communicate even with their teachers. So you see other schools, for example, local private schools, not international schools, some teachers were able to send because, you know, they know the kids have, how do you call this, smartphones, and they get their communication. They were able to send some material via WhatsApp or something at the moment. But so many public schools and so many private schools as well, many students were not able to, the learning could not continue. And that's what we call a learning crisis in many cases. Like, there was no actual learning. So we were saying that even before the COVID outbreak, the country has already experienced problems in education, such as mismatch between number of students and of issues, even before the outbreak of the pandemic. But again, it added more trouble when students were able to continue accessing school learning content through television and radios. That's what they did. It was a national strategy, like a government strategy, I believe, to keep the learning on through television, so that teachers could give lectures and they're filmed and people can watch television. But looking at that, so many families in the villages do not have televisions, do not even have radios. And those who do, they didn't find it a way of learning because it was very boring. There was no interaction between teachers and students. It is more of listening to somebody giving lectures. By the way, there's something you get, but again, how do they check that you understand? How do they, how do you apply what they teach? How can they assess you? Something like that. So most students could not hear or see anything related to school for 3 consecutive months, especially in rural areas. For that matter, there was no learning. Malnutrition was obvious, and hunger due to missed midday meal. And it has been a normal thing here in Tanzania when a student go to public school, some private schools, they have to eat lunch there. And they don't have to go back home. They actually leave school somewhere around 4 in the evening, 4 p.m. And when they go back home, parents don't even have to worry about the kids' lunch. So it's fine, they already had lunch and porridge in the morning, maybe, and then they come home. So parents were not ready really for that change. Of know that in many families in rural areas, people just eat only 1 meal or maybe 2, just because of their poverty issues. So kids engage in any activity to support family, and that was one of the outcome. And of course, I got this from my former head teacher at my former primary school, and one of the teacher who teaches public schools here, we kind of had a conversation, and they gave me the experience, and it was quite obvious that these are the things people in this country are experiencing. Even talking to some family members in the villages. So sexual abuse also increased, and that could be So as you guys know that in Africa, maybe in Tanzania, there's a lot of sexual abuse and sexual assault to students, like young girls. And it could be the people they meet when they go to school. Like we do have motorcycle transportations, we call them border. So these drivers sometimes offer to take the student to school, to give them lift or like a ride, and then in return they ask for sexual relationship. And these girls living with the families at home, some people are that bad really to to engage into sexual activities with these girls. And we could see a lot of pregnancies cases reported. And that means if you are pregnant, you won't be able, according to the current laws of the country, you won't be able to go back to public schools. And that means you're now dropping out. And for those who actually decided to go to work to help their families, sometimes they find it more, they find it's very important to continue doing work to help, because whenever they start earning money, they start lacking money and they see education as less important. So after they reopened the school, there was complaints from lots of schools in Tanzania that there was dropouts. By the way, parents were threatened to be taken to courts because of that. And then some really responded by bringing back the kid to school. Some couldn't just because of the conditions, especially if the child is pregnant, then you have to wait until they give birth. And they will actually look at an alternative path. So those who were able to go back to school, they struggled a lot to keep up with courses and completion of the syllabi. How did the decision of reopening made or wished? So as in many other places, in the beginning of the outbreak, there were lots of panic and anxiety among Tanzanians. We didn't know what to do at the moment. People thought, oh yeah, this is going to be the end of the world. We're all going to die and stuff like those ones. But at the same time, there was no way we could stop going to the markets. We could stop, this essential gathering really, because people depend on casual laborers to be able to get earning, like a meal. So they continue really to go, and the government did not stop these people to go. So some people observed guidelines such as washing hands and wearing face masks, and some guidelines were impossible to observe, like those ones of social distancing and stay at home orders. So in late April, the president, he was actually in his hometown, Chato. He attended the Sunday prayer, and he claimed that the Chinese-made COVID kits were defective and gave wrong results. So they could name stuff like papaya, Abdul, and like they took sample from different objects, different things, and send it to the laboratory, and the result could come positive and negative. So what he said was like, I don't believe these kits are here to give the actual or the correct result of the test. There might be something wrong with them. So he said, we should stop testing from now. And the moment we stopped testing, the cases in the country were 509, and the active cases were 305, and 21 people were dead. If those data were actually, because there was also some stories of the data not being actual, because what we were seeing through social media like Twitter We could see video of people being buried at night, like dead body being buried at night. And some people saying that there's lots of people in the hospitals who are sick, like everywhere. Yeah, so the president called for the country prayer, saying that we need to pray for this disease to go away. And I think that prayer was done for a week long. And then after a few days later, he came out and declared victory over the pandemic, said, oh, we won against it. It is no longer here. So what he said, God has heard our prayers and eradicated it. So he asked people to continue with their life as normal. Keep going where you're going, open schools and everything, even sports. And then he started praising people who came to his gathering without masks and say, you guys are brave. I'm not even wearing masks. You're not wearing masks. You're not afraid of the disease. And that make people like all over the country to be comfortable and confident that this disease is no longer here in Tanzania. And looking at the current situation, honestly, I do not see people getting sick. Looking at my school, for example, we've received students from all over the world, like all over, because it's a UWC school. Nobody has shown any symptoms of COVID-19 on campus. And it could be just because we're not testing, or it could be just because it is true, it is not here. I am not sure. That is actually to debating if whether we still do have COVID or not, but no cases of people being sick at the moment. There were in the past where you could hear people coughing, you could hear people, you could hear someone from your family from my family saying, I'm sick, and this is not a normal, Asante sana means thank you very much for listening, and karibu for the chat if there is a to see. I don't know how to stop this. Oh. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Abdul. Thank you, Abdul, for giving us that insightful kind of look at the thing. The situation down there. Not only did you show us the beauty that the country has in terms of its natural resources and other attractions, and yeah, I know there could be questions for you, but in the interest of time, we still have time. I will probably have Aisha give a perspective as well, and then we will see how to allocate a few minutes of questions to you, the team, and then we'll transition. Otherwise, thank you. That was really, really wonderful. I have some burning questions for you, but yes, we'll start from there. So okay, Aisha, are you on?
Yeah, yes, I am on. I think the
Okay.
video won't be necessary.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you very much. I'm Aisha Soudy from Tanzania, giving support to Abdul's talk. I'm doing Masters of Public Health currently, so I'm a student at the University of Dar es Salaam. So I'll go straight to what is expected from me as a higher learning student. Well, I'll share my observations and my thoughts. So yes, with COVID-19 here in Tanzania, and so we've had a positive psychology from our president, I would call it. It was really good. It made us be who we think we are right now and believe that we don't have COVID anymore. And here we are, we're surviving, as Abdul said earlier. So the impact, the disconnect, the inequalities in education that I myself and my fellows, of course, we have experienced. I'll talk about me, what I saw. As Tanzania, as other sub-Saharan African countries, we have this power cutoff, the power, the electricity, and low internet connection. You see what we actually experienced earlier on with Abdul. So this all comes to affect us direct, we students in the university level. Apparently now we do our studies online. That's how we do it. We do proposal presentations. We do dissertation defense. You go and you defend your work through Zoom meeting like we're doing right now. So with COVID and all of that, it happened really quick. With the country's situation being a sub-Saharan country, we just can't, and we couldn't, and most of us have been, lagging back with all the network and all of the electricity cut off and internet. So that's inequality. It goes to both sides, the people who have and who have not. There are those who can't afford, when we come to universities like University of Dar es Salaam that I'm going to, they select people through all over the country from different regions, from Bukoba, is Abdul stated, other Mwanza places. We have so many regions, like 30 something. So they come from different places, different villages, but now they are different in terms of the economy. With the, some may have, these smartphones, the PCs, and all of that to access what they have to access as learners, as students. But then they can't get, some do not have the ability to buy those PCs and everything. So that one, I won't talk much about it because I think Mr. Abdullah has spoken a little bit about that. And so COVID has really touched our life. And I'll be talking about the social life disconnect. So in Tanzania, I think we call ourselves the island of peace, the island of love, the island of, closeness. You just see someone today and he's a friend to you already. And, so in the colleges, it's the same. We become really social. We become friends. We interact. So in terms of social life, there was a big disconnect during COVID. And with that disconnect, someone who's coming from interior villages and all of that, who's a bit low economically, could not go back to a friend who was good economically. So you become a friend with someone and then you share some stuff. They'll give you their PC. You'll share, your work. You'll do your things together so that, this one from the interior places and you who has from the town, or you from a well-to-do family, you just, you help him or her in terms of, those materials and stationaries, But with COVID, it happened that there was a disconnect, social life disconnect. And with the social life disconnect, it goes direct to our economy as students. it goes direct to our psychology as students. It was really hectic. Some people said, this COVID-19 was a year to survive. You don't have to, to question your graduation and all of that. And so another point I would discuss is the cost of living. It goes higher, for some students. Some parents suggested, don't come this side, you'll come with COVID. Because in Dar es Salaam is where I do my studies, where it is a big town, a big city, whereby most of the students come from villages, and their parents were afraid to let them go back there because they would bring COVID, and they thought COVID would kill them at a go. And so they had to survive this side, and the economy really, by then, for those 3 good months, stopped. So it was not good, the economy. The parents could not support them. They're in the villages, they're surviving with, farming, small scale farming and all of that. So yeah, in that part, it really was weird. Some girls, some people were engaged in those, um, gender-based violence activities, I would call it. Yeah, so yeah. And I wouldn't take much of the time because I think there are some more speakers. So take an example of me. I joined Masters of Public Health 2018 November, whereby my program was supposed to take 18 months. So I was supposed to be graduating May this year. So you can see those 3 good months, how it stopped me from being a graduate of Masters of Public Health. Because, everything stopped by then. And then we went back to business with a different approach. The presentations were done, in a hall, previously before the COVID. But now we have to do it over Zoom. You must have internet connection. You must have, bundle airtime and all of those things. And not everybody would, afford to do that. So in my case, I don't know when I will be graduate. Hopefully maybe February next year. So my time has been, cut off. By COVID, of course, not by anybody. But yeah, so that's what happened, and that's what's happening right now. I submitted my proposal, and I'm expecting to do a presentation by the end of this month. And the response is really low. So, there is some inequalities, as I said, but also, with this technology is not that stable in our country. So we do expect some, more delays due to what happened those months ago. Now, I wonder if at all we had to stop like other countries, our economy, our social life, our everything, like not going back to normal, as the president created this positive psychology with us, and we all were positive about it. Maybe because everybody was expecting to become to survive with the economy, to try to sell something, buy something, this exchange kind of business. In here, we, as Abdul said, we do those kind of things. So that's it from me, I think. Yeah, thank you very much.
Right. Thank you, Aisha. I think you really touched, serious things there as well. when you talk about, the perspective of a student who is really in higher ed. So I couldn't imagine how, as a woman, female, one can survive. And even for the, male, how you can survive, because this is real. What you just spoke to there about parents up country, outside the, populated cities, asking, their loved ones who have been in contact or suspect to be in contact with, uh, areas where, there's a likelihood that, they might have a COVID, being stopped from going home, is a big one. So I can imagine. I really, I know you didn't want to speak to it, but what you're trying to say is that there are definitely, lots of other mental health issues that could actually, be going on that, probably haven't been looked into here. So anyway, lots of questions coming your way, but in the interest of time, we will have Dr. Ayman present as well, and then we'll take the questions, in one go. All right, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Aisha. Yep. All right, Dr. Ayman.
Thank you, Jorem. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining. So let me first start by sharing screen. So let me first just, okay. So my talk today is gonna focus primarily as the theme, as our theme today is about education. So I'm gonna present like how does education look like in Egypt, first place, and then how did COVID affect this system. The talking point, I'm going to go for Egypt, general overview, and then I'm going to get a glimpse about the education system in Egypt and the hit of the COVID-19, and then the consequences of that on schooling and universities. Egypt on the northeast of Africa, and as you can see, the significant thing about it is the river Nile going through it, and it has been always described as the gift of the Nile, indicating that it's like the existence of Egypt came from the Nile. The Nile started first, then there was Egypt. And capital city of Cairo with about maybe over 10 million population. General facts, population is about 100 million, and the economy is derived from agriculture, media, natural gas, Suez Canal, which is a strategic route, and tourism, which, as you know, like Egypt holds a lot of the historical monuments since like 7,000 years. Egyptian pound is equal about almost $16. And current president, this is the current president from 2014 to present. And the spoken language is Arabic with a variety of Egyptian Arabic, and most taught languages are English, French, and German. Popular food and drink. Yes.
I just wanna add something. You mentioned that the Egyptian pound is $16. It is the opposite.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, thank you for that. Okay, so yeah, so $1 is 16 Egyptian pounds. Yes, exactly. The popular food and drink, koshari, as you can see, is a mix of rice, macaroni, and lentils mixed with spiced tomato sauce and garlic vinegar. All of these in one dish, and it's like koshari shops, koshari restaurants are only specific for koshari. Is a place is a very common in Egypt streets, and it's also made at home, and it's very popular. The drink is the black tea, Arabic called shay, and it's an everyday drink. Whenever you have nothing to do, you drink tea, shay. Egyptian figures, as you can see, like I'm just giving these as examples. These are significant people in literature, chemistry, Ahmed Zuwail, surgery, Sir Magdi Yaqub, and Farouk al-Baz as a scientist in space. All of these, like I use these as an introduction to our topic today, like arguing about the fact that all these people came from the Egyptian education. They are all graduated from Egyptian universities, and from there they continued on their route. Okay, so this would take us to the education system in Egypt. And when we talk about schools in Egypt, we are talking about public and private schools. And of course, the majority of schools are public, with some private and language schools. And you could see the differences here, especially in the coasts, and the fees would vary depending on what the school provide regarding like services, bus, all, and kind of education. And actually, in many cases, they are exaggerating in their costs, and this is a very very hot topic in Egypt about complaining that about the cost of quality education. Okay, so universities in Egypt, same idea. There are public universities and private universities. Public universities are officially like announced as free, but still there are some costs and supplies which could be around $1,000, could be more. The private universities could have astronomical costs for average citizens. Like some private colleges would cost more, like about $10,000. It's a high cost for education, but people struggle to invest in their kids' education, especially in schools, not as much in the university education. So we are talking about two words in one country. The average income of Egyptian citizens is about like $300 to $500 a month, and this would mean there are unequal opportunities for high achieving students. Could be like bright students who don't have access to private education, but they can still survive in the public education, although their parents would need them to be in high quality education. So this opens up like the phenomenon of private tutoring. By private tutoring, I mean like it has become a norm that students would get learning from going to the teacher in their place or some kind of center where they have scheduled meetings, and they go and they take assignments, testing, and everything. It's kind of a education center. Like each teacher would do that. Of course, it's for I mean, it's a kind of a job, additional job to have for the teacher to do this tutoring business. But it has become a norm for parents that in order to get good education or good learning and get higher grades on the exams, in the end, you have to learn closely by a tutor, private tutoring. And it's not actually, you cannot still call it private, because they have scheduled groups, like a group of 20, 30, 40 students in one place, as if like it's a mini schools. Then moving to the core of our topic today, how was the hit of COVID in Egypt? And this Egyptian situation here from the World Health WHO website as of today. These are the total number of cases and the death out of COVID. And you see that the track starting from early March, and the peak was there June, July, and it became now like as it started. This is officially what's reported, and we'll talk later about what's the current situation. The government response in the beginning was closures of mosques and churches, night curfew from 7 p.m. to 6 a.m., school closing until the end of the academic year, and then the government started to look for emergency plans for examinations. How they gonna assess? Now, the key problem here, how they gonna assess the students in the end? Of course, as you can see, the students were rejoicing the idea that there is no school. So, and the semester is gone. There is no college. They are not going to university. And what were the alternatives? What was the plan? I mean, I'm relating here actually, and because the topic of today is relating from like, how can you relate? I'm relating to my own kids who are in Egypt right now. Like my son was just after this closing, he was just asked to submit some like an essay, few pages essay about, and let me remember what was the topic. I think they were given two choices to write some essay or research about overpopulation. So something that has nothing to do with the curriculum. Just they want to close this file. Let's graduate these students. That was for the public school. For private schools, they could handle some exams online. And for high schools, there was a system, the tablet system established, which was like students in high school were given tablets to remain with them all over the study time. And on this tablet, they have access to what they call the bank knowledge, some websites, and some platforms for learning. And they could do also exams on that. Public universities, they didn't have much infrastructure at this time to do online testing. So most of these were done on site. Of course, that contracts come to private universities. What is the current situation? It's the officially reported cases are quite low, as they are described, 200 cases a day or less. But anecdotal evidence tell us there are way more. But doctors tend to say the symptoms are less severe, less cases would need hospitals, and actually, as you can see, the community response to that is mixed with humor. Like people didn't panic, even from the very start. They were just, you could see like some examples from the social media. They are like making fun of COVID or Mr. COVID here. And these are the number of cases for that particular meme. And the reason why they are kind of making fun of COVID, that you are giving us just 238 cases a day. So that was the point. Also, sharing, like community was responding like in a friendly way, just sharing medicine on Facebook. So this is sharing these pictures, and this was an actual picture that was shared on Facebook. That if you get COVID, just go and buy these from the pharmacy. And this is a note that in Egypt, you can just go, if you feel something, you can just go and have a list of medicine and just purchase the medicine, okay? And so right now, life is almost back to normal, regardless of the spread. Okay. And then, so we were talking about back to school. Now we are talking about the new academic year right now. So of course, as you say, Egyptians were not excited to be back. And here is like one meme that are also arguing with COVID. If you are having a second wave, please come now before we pay the school fees. Okay, so they are not excited to get back. So what is the plan for the new academic year? And I'm again relating to my own son. So Officially, they start the semester on October 17, and the plan was to divide the capacity, increase reliance on online modes, and the Ministry of Education Knowledge Bank, TV educational channels, online lessons on YouTube, special online channels for primary grades, high school. The instruction was through their tablets, as I mentioned before. And so, talking from experience, yes, the schools started officially. Dividing the capacity means that students would go, like some students would go 2 days of the week, and others would go 2 other days, like dividing who goes, which grades go on certain days. Okay. Again, relating to my son refused actually to go back to school, claiming that they have found cases there. But life for other students, life would go on. And mostly, again, going back to the idea of private tutoring, they are relying more on private groups to learn rather than school. So what has the Ministry of Education prepared for their students? One example of that was the Ministry of Education streaming of the curriculum, and actually I explored some of the links, and it worked for me from here. I just didn't have to have any password or anything. I just went there and I found a schedule of the material that I need to study and the grade. And this was from grade 9 science. And this is the lesson. When I opened, I found like recorded lectures actually, and I was able to watch and listen to the teacher explaining and demonstrating this kind of lesson, the difference between physical quantities somehow. And this was actually recorded on that website. So what I learned afterwards, that these have schedule that they stream live, and students can get in at these times and interact with the teacher. So that was an option that I found it was working. For the higher education, for universities, I also found this link, which was also provided for Egyptian students, and they were linked to Microsoft Teams as well. Same, but here we are talking about asynchronous modes. The professors would go there and record lectures related to their curriculum. Is this working like actively as it should? This would have to be discussed, because we are not sure that students, like professors, are actually trained to do that very well, or students are excited to go and follow through that. So what was the reaction? How did the public respond to that? Some would see like it's too optimistic to be working. Yes, these resources are available, but we are worried about the infrastructure. For example, the use of technology. Some parents are not ready to deal with technology whatsoever. And so it's also a struggle. Lack of interaction between teachers and students, and this is also, of course, universal, something that we all share about Zoom learning, and lack of teacher training. This is a big issue, and affordability of technology, and lack of acceptability. And this is important because most of the public would see online learning as it's less serious. It's not actually learning. It just is something to fill the gap. And so private tutoring is still gaining further ground. So students are now back to their private lessons, go to the teacher in their center or their houses in scheduled groups, and this is how they learn. How they're gonna be tested, this will vary. This will be determined afterwards. And they are still considering how is the semester going to go. And it's not clear up to this point if they are continuing with the semester or they're gonna close down again. There is no serious complications right now. Things should be officially going on, but maybe like most students are not actually back to school, but it is officially back. So what we learn from the crisis that, yes, like we're talking about inequalities. Where are these unequal opportunities? Of course, one thing is when we talk about synchronous learning, it's more available for private schools and universities. They can handle that more efficiently than public schools. The platforms that the ministry has provided, they are promising, but still yet to be tested to see if they can handle the challenge. It could just be an outer shell, but not really used. Okay. So can we do it? Yes, they are doing an effort. We cannot ignore that, but it's still a long way to go to narrow the gap between the average learner and the privileged students in private or foreign schools. More effort needed to familiarize people and gain trust that they can trust the outcomes. And I think this will be the question time. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Dr. Ayman. I think, just a good way to put together everything. So, it's question time, it's tea time. Yes, and yep, just at the dot of 5 for sure. So we still have some time. So my question to you, and again to the team, I do know there may be some questions that that will be coming up. So, if there's some of you that just want to type yours into the the chat box, please feel free to do so. Otherwise, you can also raise your hand, and then I could ask you to speak out. So mine would be, and it is to the educators, Dr. Ayman and Abdul Mutashobya. You people talk of the same experiences, the students that is happening on the continent. And, this is one thing that has been on my mind for a while. And, I keep thinking, definitely, this has never been experienced anywhere. This has hit the education system so hard. I feel like the teachers themselves are ill prepared to handle situations outside this because of all the difficulties that there are technologically and even in terms of training, pedagogically. What would be, what do you think we are missing? What would be the ideal? Because we do have such, a diverse or, spectrum of, family, socioeconomic status and all of this. And, from both presentations, Abdul being in international school and, you looking at it from that aspect, it seems to still point to the same issue that those of high SCS who are having access to the technology and these platforms are continuing, without any issue. Now, certain technologies or formats have been tried for people that you don't have these technologies, but they also seem to be they're not working as well. The interaction, there is no feedback. Even if you printed material and gave a student to go read, there's no feedback. The interaction is missing. What would be our ideal? Okay, if there was anything you could envision as something that could probably be workable, what would that be in the context of something that could benefit a good majority of the students?
Well, the ideal is always like hard to achieve, but we're thinking about what is a better way to present this. I'm talking from experience and talking about the context. If we are talking about the Egyptian context, technology use is going okay, it's going fine, but the idea is how we are gonna take the public to take this like seriously and look at it as actual learning, and this is how it, not because they are looking forward now to go back like to the normal way of learning, because this is the only way they think they will learn. The ideal situation, I think it starts with the educators. It starts with the teachers, like the training programs that would put teachers on like the spot to be ready to handle this more efficiently. We have even us here in the US have gone through the training by using these resources. So many of us didn't have much experience in teaching online, but it's developing over time. So I think first starting with teacher training, then awareness between like to the public, to parents, that this is how it works right now. Assessment is important, like because in Egypt the assessment mostly is based on paper and pencil, and it's also more of memorization and putting the information back on the exam paper. So we have to work out the assessment. If the public is informed well about the assessment and it's fair assessment, they will be comfortable that, okay, we can go ahead and try this. But all what they are concerned about, and again, this is from experience, that what should we do in the exam? We should study and memorize these. I have my kid to study and memorize these things because we want to get scores in the end in the exam. And this is a phenomenon that we have in the high school, by the last year of high school, where students get admitted to college based on their cumulative total score in the last year of high school. And this is also has to be developed. So also I can hear other ideas from other perspectives. This is just initial thoughts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Ayman. So Abdul, as a person who is dealing with this, and I know your students are also different kind of a demographic, but you know, Dr. Ayman places it, you know, in a very interesting area, which I think really, yes, is something that we hadn't thought about, because he's talking about the focus on parents and the educators themselves in terms of delivery for the students. I don't know, what is your experience as when this, you know, did strike? You know, you may have some colleagues still that are teaching in a little disadvantaged populations as well. What was your experience? What do you think could also work? Could, you know, do you kind of agree with what Dr. Ayman is also articulating here? Do we have?
Thank you so much, Dr. Jorem.
All right. Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes, it's, you know, it's breaking a bit.
Can you hear me, Dr. Jorem?
Yes, we hear you.
Oh, thank you. Maybe I can turn my video off and see if that works.
Okay.
So looking at our context, especially Tanzania context, the country that has huge population of people who are poor, honestly. And looking at how the world is actually going, looking at these emergencies that are happening that we have never expected they would happen, especially the COVID-19 pandemic. I think going forward should be looking at how we can start thinking differently, looking at education policymakers to technology at that age is not helping them. And they've realized at the moment that if these kids were exposed to technology, were exposed to computers, were exposed to tablets, were exposed to phone, and then at least a bit of learning could still go on, despite of all the challenges that we have, you know, not prepared teachers to handle technology, to handle online teaching, or not having enough resources, not having stable internet, all these other stuff. At least if a student can go to Google, search about something, go to YouTube, look a video on something, this can help them to continue learning even if they are far away from their teacher, even if they're outside of the classroom, the traditional classroom. I think thinking of what we can do to change is very, very important of our policies regarding to the use of technology in education. Prohibiting kids really is not, like banning phones, banning technology at school is not helping the kids. It's actually making things bad. Looking at my situation, for example, as somebody who were able to move the learning online, there was lots of challenges. Of course, we were trained on how to use Google Classroom, how to use Google Zoom breakout rooms, and all this stuff. But again, it's if it has to be spending 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours a day looking at a screen, it is horrible. It's not a good experience. And not just us teachers who disliked it, even students, they were like, we're missing that connection of having our friends around. And sometimes, because I was a mentor to one of the secondary class, I could have just a Zoom call with my students, asking them to speak to each other. Just, hey, talk to each other. I'm not going to tell you anything. And so at least give them that kind of connection. So there's a huge disconnection when you have this, you rely on this technology like Zoom or whatever, teaching. And that is not a good experience of, learning, because learning, it has to be getting to know each other, getting to work together, it doesn't have to be only focusing on materials. It doesn't have to be only focusing on academics. It could be social, it could be, yeah, I think you guys understand what I'm trying to say. So I believe also that one has, it has to be also looked at it in a way that learning will promote engagement, learning will promote, and also assessment. I thank you so much, Dr. Ayman, for pointing out that some assessment cannot just be done online. It has to be honest, rather than presenting an S or something, but some assessment has sometimes to be physical. You're seeing a student, you're interacting with them face to face. It doesn't have to be like this at some point. I believe that also can be looked at on how are we going forward with technology learning, and especially those who can access technology. Because otherwise it will be, people are happy just because they on the computer wasting time. And I've seen that with my students, particularly. You think they're listening, and then they're on other things. And when we reopen the school, that content which were covered during the shutdown was not really internalized. People couldn't remember anything. Like, oh, maybe I did not learn, but they were not taking that serious, I would say, at the moment. Yeah, I think that's my observation about that.
Okay, you did mention an important thing in there, and I want to follow it up with a question from Edith, who is actually, she's curious about the ability to level the educational playing field. Yes, between those who have more resources and those with less. In Egypt, I think Dr. Ayman, will respond to that. And then if there are any attempts to do so. But she's also curious about the situation in Tanzania, especially about the 3 months gap, when the students were not at school. How was that, gap addressed? Did teachers start where they left off regarding the curriculum? Did they also account for potential learning loss? Or did they just, plow through, or, just go on forward? So, something about what happened, the 3 months they were not. I know you've talked about, you kind of talked about this saying, hey, you kind of assess them and they tell you maybe, you didn't learn or anything, but how do you account for that time when then they were not in school and what you're giving them online seems not to have actually, been mastered?
Can I help Abdul on that?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
Okay. It's Aisha here.
Yeah.
Well, so yeah, they tried to cover up when they opened up the schools. The teachers and the students, together with parents, agreed on extending time. So they extended more hours, um, so that they could cover up the gap that they experienced of 3 months time. And also, so they tried to push and try to bring up all the stuff together and become, put everything normal and get all the exams on time and everything. Yeah, so in Tanzania we tried. Yeah, so we discussed that with parents, with the teachers, with learners, especially in the lower level of education. Yeah, so they tried to do that, and we will do the annual examination as we always do. uh, like all other years we do the annual exam. Yeah, so we managed to do that with all the chaos of COVID.
Mm.
So the kids who were so it wasn't about who has now. The inequalities were put down. So it just depended on the what school are you going to. If you're going to a private school, a well-to-do school, and you're going and the other one is going to a public school, it was the matter of discussing the head teachers and the other teachers, the class teachers, the subject teachers, on how to try to push and make the kids manage to learn all this 3 month stuff in a very short period so that they could cover up and make sure that everything goes right. Yeah, so it happened and everything is okay this side. Although the teachers are working really hard to try to bring that up. Maybe Abdul could talk more about that, but that's my observation so far. Mm.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much, Aisha. And yep. And in the same vein, Dr. Ayman, Edith is asking. She's curious. I don't know if you've seen that about you know uh, leveling up the education field between those who have and those who didn't have in Egypt. Were there any attempts? Because you did talk about most of them gravitating towards kind of private tutoring, but was there like a government effort to kind of level up? How do you cater for that difference between those who have and those who don't in this time?
Mhm. Yeah, I'll try. Um, I don't want to miss any question back, so I think I can respond to Haitham and Edith.
Yes, there was Haytham as well. Yep.
Yeah. So about private tutoring, yes, private tutoring is back. Uh, uh, like after a lockdown, yes, it was. Like, can you imagine that the private tutoring was back initially uh, by Zoom, and this also happened to my son. Like, he was going to the private lesson through Zoom, and it was, in many cases, it was a disaster because teachers also didn't have enough tools to check homework, to ask them to do homework and then to check the homework. There was no such tools. Um, what schools, and now they are back actually in person, in private tutoring. Schools have tried to do uh, tutoring groups. That's what they did, and they were officially announced by the school that there will be tutoring groups, and they asked students to enroll, and some people actually also use this service. So there was an effort from the school because they were trying to do a crackdown on private tutoring. They're trying to delegalize private tutoring. They had these issues, but it didn't work. But these things are coming side by side these days, and so on schools. As I said, in the first lockdown, they did not continue the curriculum, but starting from the new academic year, there was like the private teachers started as usual from the beginning of the curriculum, and schools should be officially starting. More regulations are in private schools. Public schools are still shaky in the way they arrange attendance or keep things going. They could be apparently going on, but not as efficiently as in private institutions. I hope I'm covered the questions.
All right. Any questions from, I see Damaris, looks like you have something you want to ask
Yes,
as well. Yes.
you know, I can't raise a hand, and I just wanted to.
Okay. Yeah.
Host you don't have the function to raise a hand.
Yeah.
So first, thank you so much to all our presenters. This has been a very, very insightful discussion. I'm really pleased to hear from Tanzania and from Egypt. And I know it could be a similar situation in most African countries. So thank you so much for just representing two countries, but perhaps even speaking to more other countries. First, before I move from the discussion on the situation of education, I really, not education, I mean offering the education pretty much. So I'm not providing any answer, but I'm just trying to complicate it more because I come from Kenya, and when I look at the situation in Kenya, I think this pandemic has just posed a dilemma. I don't really think even leaders know exactly what they're supposed to do. Sometimes I ask myself, if I was a leader in a time like this, what are the options do I have? For example, in Kenya, just to add on what some of you have discussed, currently, first, when the pandemic hit, the announcement was from the government, from the Ministry of Education, that the students were not going back to school, whether it's university, all levels of education, nobody was going to go back to school. Come last month, was it last month? Yeah, sometime last month. Oh, they said, no, we're going to go back. So you can imagine parents are not even prepared to have their kids go back to school. There are costs involved. There's that even preparation, getting yourself ready, even the students for themselves, because knowing that you are going to go to school in January, and all of a sudden the announcement comes that, no, we think, actually not all of them are going back. We have the fourth graders, because the curriculum in Kenya is changing, and it just affects the students, kids who are in the fourth grade, like standard 4 in Kenya. Also, the candidates who are going to sit for the national exams, that's 8th graders. And for 12th graders, that's Form 4, that's what we call it. So there's a section of students that are going back to school because they have to sit for exams. So my question is, we have 8th graders who are supposed to join 9th grade next year. They've been asked to go back to school, but the 9th graders, the ones who had already started 9th grade in January, are not going back. So these students, the 8th graders, are supposed to go back, take an exam in March, that's the plan for right now, and join high school come September, or just within sometime within next year. So I wonder, where will the 9th graders who had already started going to be? They're not moving straight to 10th grade because they're not sitting for any exams. So it's just a confusion. I don't know what exactly is going to happen. The 8th graders are sitting for exams in March, and then do what? Join the 9th graders? Where is the space? That there's no capacity to hold two classes, like two cohorts of 9th graders. So no answer, but I'm just trying to say that the situation is different in different countries, but honestly, I don't know going forward how this situation is going to be resolved, how we're going to get back to our normal lives. Anybody can add to that, but the next aspect that I wanted to bring up is the gender dimension. I think in the case of Tanzania, especially listening to the presentation, because I heard Abdul talk about when the kids were going back to school, somehow it just feels to me that the female children are disproportionately affected in the fact that some of them got pregnant. I know there are other issues in there, like kids engaging in business to cater for families in some way, but it does feel to me that the female students, on top of that, some of them are not able to go back to school because of pregnancies, for example. So what's the take in other countries? Because it's the same thing in Kenya. This is what I'm hearing. It's not that I have data on how many of those cases, but it's just in the news, or it's there.
Yeah.
No, I have the. So what is going on in other countries?
Thank you. Thank you, Damaris. And I saw Dr. Fiong's hand up. Before he comes in, I think he has some answers for you as well, or certain suggestions for you. But I just wanted to join in and also say in Uganda, it's the same thing. The candidate classes, starting from primary to high school, advanced level to university, have been called back. So it's a phased kind of a return to school. And so it's the same question on parents' minds that so what happens to these other classes that are in between here? Do they lose the year? So all things that because it's not affecting the private schools that much because they continue doing so online. But what happens, on the other side? But yes, I'd seen Dr. Fiong's hand up. Yes, you can feel free to speak to them. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I this question is for Ayman, Mohamed, or anyone else who wants to answer it. First of all, thank you very much. I do appreciate the perspective you're bringing in from Egypt, because this is a region generally, not just Egypt, that I'm unfamiliar with, and many times I'm not getting a lot, sufficient information, if you like, from that a part of the continent. So thank you very much. And this is my question. How is the pandemic affecting different demographics in Egypt? In the US, the general view is that the elderly is affected most. Is that the case in Egypt with regard to schools with a high population of young people?
Mm-hmm. I think it's almost the same case. The people who had existing conditions like other medical issues, they would suffer the most, and they would be the most death cases. And we have seen this as I mentioned in the presentation. The official records say something, but we see more at the peak of the pandemic. There were a lot of death coming around. Every person of us had like new people who were who dead from the COVID. This was the peak, and these were people mostly elder people and who had other health issues as well. School students, we didn't hear that as much. Maybe in the beginning, before the lockdown, we hear there started to be cases, and this was the motivation to close the schools. Right now, there are rumors that there is something, but we're not sure what's going to happen.
Okay, right. And I know Dr. Damaris had a question. I don't know if you want to respond to that as well, or Abdul. A question related to, are you also saying this? And like, it was a comment anyway about the levels that have been invited back, and then what happens with the rest. I don't know if you have any idea to that. Damaris, did I forget anything? There was the first one.
Actually, I don't think there's an.
It was just something you talked about.
Yeah.
There was,
okay.
Right.
There was a comment by
yes. Okay. So generally, one of the things we have seen in other places, that there's been a spike in the demand for mental health services as well. And Aisha did actually, throw a spot, say something about this in terms of, hey, what is happening with the girl child in the higher institution of learning, and the fact that they could not go home, and that these activities that could actually, emerge as a result of survival. And so in other places, we do see there's been now people are getting into, teletherapy, for example, counseling online, and, have a way to, to rely on others. In Africa, we usually rely on our extended family and friends, which probably in such a situation is tougher for, a person in school or in a home district without their people. So, I don't know if we want to, talk a little to that as well, especially from Aisha's perspective that, do you see the need for, such services, for example? Do you see the need for teachers as well to be equipped, in terms of dealing with some of these, especially in situations where they probably could be the main contact, for these students at that point? Aisha, and then do we still have Aisha? Probably it's late. Let's see.
It's going to
okay.
2 a.m. in Tanzania. So
exactly. So it's probably yes. So
she left.
so yeah, I really would have loved to pick that from them, but yeah.
I can respond to that, Dr.
Yes.
Jorem.
Yes, Abdul.
I do believe that we need to be equipped with these resources as teachers, as students as well. It is it is an awkward situation.
Yeah.
Like time we live in, the situation is actually different at my school at the moment. But when we were in lockdown, I could see that I'm in the house all the day, like the whole day from morning to evening, and then most of the time on the computer, on the screen, and there's lots of those things actually come in, such as depression. Sometimes you feel like you need to talk to someone who could help you to cope with that situation. Because of course they say stress is a good thing. Just because you're occupied, it shows that you care about something, you're occupied. But at the same time, if you do not have a good strategy to cope with it, then it becomes harmful, like becomes something that is going to cause harm rather than being positive, being something that we should and that is actually happened to our students as well. So they want, that's why that's the reason I brought up a point of giving them a social life to talk about things that matters to their life. Of course, education matters to their life, but at the same time, they need to have a different world, although it could be online at the moment. So I think, unfortunately, we don't have these resources in our countries. Looking at our school, even at our school, of course, we do have a counselor. She provides online resources, but that's not enough to everybody. The school has lots of students and it's only one person offering that. So I think these stuff are so important, especially during these times of pandemic, when we have a completely different life.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Any other comment? I just wanted to say, this discussion has brought up lots of other things, and if there is one of the biggest things that has actually come to my attention as well, that I might have not thought about that well, is that even as we think about the divide, look at it in technology, access generally, we also forget about the parents and teachers. And what is really hitting here is that the parents need some refresher training, or their tutors at that level also have to look at. It seems that this pandemic has brought a situation where we kind of have to engage with our teachers and place them in a situation where they're still comfortable to at least give something close to an online or individual kind of assignment that they are confident to assess at certain point. Of course, reaching a teacher will be difficult for the feedback at this time, because I do know that some schools printed the material and sent it to the students. How to get that material back to the teacher is really, really different. So how you really empower, of course, if it's a parent who has probably gone to school in the same area their children are going, probably they would be in position to help and give feedback. But there's that parent, this is probably, the first child to go to high school in the family. And so how do you deal with that? And so the online technology, is big, but the way we train the teachers, retrain them is important. I don't think that has been focused on at the moment, because when you talk about Microsoft Teams or all of these are things like we all know, that you need retraining. And even, for somebody, to just place a computer there and think somebody will use, it's also not true. And I guess we really have to think outside the box and say, hey, we are focusing on the students. How could we still get the buy-in from parents? Again, like we're talking of the awareness, but how do the parents help in the training? And how do we probably move away from the mode of thinking? And I'm just challenging all of us. This is a question I'm throwing out to you, is that, do you think it is time for us to actually rethink the model of pedagogy, the way of teaching? That, probably sitting in the class always, and having a teacher before you may not be the best, but that we need to train, children, even if they're coming to school, to actually take on independent assignments in whatever way that we then can look at, as opposed to teaching them as a mass. And, they're psychologically skewed to that thinking, always, I have to have this teacher before me. That's when I learn, because now when I'm at home, what am I doing? Because, what could I do? It's a thing. So it's just a question out there to, to all of us. I know there are lots of, academics, educators, students here. Do you think our way of teaching, on the continent should actually, be tweaked a bit? Do we still have to, have our children going to school on a daily? And of course, there comes those logistical issues. You're going to work, the child has to be somewhere as well. But in the schools, do we think there needs to be some change? Yeah.
I'll just comment. As always, it's not like it's a conclusive, but definitely change it's a better option. Like, of course, I don't think that you change and then you have the kids do their work from home. I doubt that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Reason being, we're talking about different demographics here.
Yeah.
Imagine a parent who doesn't even understand what school is. They're just sending their children to school because there's school that is free. Yeah. It's not as if they not care. I wouldn't use that. It's not as if they have anything more to do. You go to school, come back, help with chores, and that's all they know. So the model that you're talking about would work in more elite families, I would say, or families that at least know that there's support that is supposed to happen at home. But especially rural families would suffer if that happened. So what we're doing currently, a teacher and a student being taught or being assigned work to do, is just the only way right now, unless something changes in the future. That's probably the only way that education is going to be offered for the majority poor, I would say, in rural Africa. But other than that, I think, I know there are better ways that we can structure or offer education, but at this point, it has to start from the structural reform, like change everything. And even if we did that, I doubt that when we're talking about family support, it's going to be even close to equal. We're not going to design the families that we want to have the children come from. So there's some changes that we can make. There's some things that we can do, maybe empower kids to ask questions or be able to learn from the immediate environment by themselves, if that's possible. But I don't think that there's a way that we can change it completely and be like, okay, maybe come to school 2 days, work from home. Work from home means go to the farm in some of the families. So yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was actually doing this. Sorry about that. I just want to add to what Damaris has said. I agree with you, actually. The question is a very good question, whether education should be restructured, but it depends on a number of infrastructural issues, which is, I think, is what part of what Damaris has referred to. And there's something I picked up that she said when she was speaking, that is get these students to actually ask more questions. The kind of education I had, because I didn't go to school in the US, is you basically were not trained to think critically because you didn't have the right to even ask questions or to say, I disagree, you know. So a lot of things, not just the infrastructural changes, but changes in mindset as well. And then you need to look at other factors, the urban areas versus the rural areas. Again, it makes you can't just apply one to the other, apply the same methods in one as the same method in a different, you know, completely different space. So, and let me just speak a little bit too, because the whole thing has been brought up about online teaching. Online teaching, or in some cases, a situation where a child may be better off actually going to school from home, that is not actually unusual. In some cases, depending on several reasons, which may range from mental to other reasons, it's been happening. And in fact, that's originally what online teaching was designed for, that kind of thing. Online teaching was also originally designed to take care of, say, American soldiers in Iraq. Universities like the University of Maryland, University College, of which I was once a faculty, had a long tradition of online teaching before it even became an issue or recognized by a lot of universities. So a lot of these students were older parents, soldiers in other countries. That's what it was designed for, and it made sense. It wasn't designed for young people who were typically able to attend school, except young people with a number of emotional, social, or other issues or mental issues. So now the process of readjusting is a major problem. And whereas it seems as if America already has an answer, we don't. It is actually a struggle right now. And so it's going to take some time, but it's not something that was planned for. This just suddenly came at us, just suddenly. But interestingly enough, in countries, including countries on the African continent, where you have good infrastructure, it's actually being handled fairly well with the same problems. So it's a level on several levels. Whatever adjustments that need to be made, several factors need to be taken into account. Everything from infrastructural, demographics, wealth, privilege, urban centers, the rural areas. Then when it comes to the COVID issue, the dynamics even change more because it even becomes more complicated. So that's my view on that. Thank you.
Yeah. And so listening to you and Dr. Damaris as well, I would ask a follow-up questions that, having a child be in position to ask, and all this, are these too much to actually, train a parent on, that if a child asks you a question, it shouldn't be? Those are some of the things that, I was thinking about, that, is there a way we could target parents as well to build that even within the home environment, that a child can actually ask and, you explain to them and even go further? It could be while digging or any of this, right?
No, it's a great question. And I think that if we're going to make changes, it's not just infrastructural. Attitudes need to change. Now, like I said, I grew up in a situation where I couldn't ask my parents or my teachers, sometimes my parents, questions, but my students do it, So I've had to undergo a change, mentally. I think it's possible. The steps to be taken, I don't know, because some traditions are also very, very strong, and people are going to resist some of these things. But I think it's possible.
Yeah, I would also agree with Philip that yes, it's possible and it's doable, but it will be a process. it's not going to come tomorrow, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't start even now, because anything actually begins with the mindset. In my work, I address the ideas where we're supposed to actually begin, especially my work is on girl, child, and female education, where I think starting from the family, starting to engage parents, the family, for a source of support for children is the best place to begin. And I say this all the time because children, as much as they spend time at school, they also, families where they find their base. That's where they come back to. If it's a day school, for example, that's where they come to in the evening. That's where the emotional support should be. So I agree with you that yes, we should have these conversations. If there anything that schools can do to engage parents and start having to educate parents on why it's important to support their kids from home. And that support can always be about supporting them to learn. And another support can be just knowing that giving them an environment to be children and students at home. As I said, it doesn't have to be that you're helping them learn in any way like academics. But if parents are taught that if a child comes home with homework, it will be very, very helpful, for example, not assigning them chores, letting them do it, So those types of very simple things that we can start engaging families on might go a long way. So it doesn't have to be like a big reform that we have to start with. We can just start with, yes, we know families should be involved. They can't be involved on the same level. If we're asking parents to be trained on different technologies to be able to support their students, that's a level of parents who can do that. That doesn't mean that now we're leaving everybody else who is not in that platform out. No, what can you do as a parent if you're not educated enough to be able to support in terms of academics? What environment can you provide at home to enable students learn? In the question of asking questions, yes, I think that should be part of teachers' training. We can reverse that quite easy, actually, changing that mindset from having it as a part of the curriculum, especially in Kenya, we have a teachers training college. If it's universities, you're doing education or any other discipline, let's learn to provide the environment for students to be able to challenge, to be able to question, to be able to learn, because that's the only way you learn. If I'm scared of asking a question, that doesn't mean that I understood. No, it's that I don't have an avenue of asking it. So I agree 100% it's doable, and it's something actually that we should be doing if it's not being done. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if there's any other comment. I know we have, about 6 minutes to close. So
I just want to take from Tariq's comment. I just want to address it quickly. This could be another theme for a further discussion. He was commenting about the national discourse. In my presentation, I marginally referred to how the Egyptian discourse was presented on social media. How did they see COVID and its consequences? And it was mainly, as Tariq said, it was humor-based. And that's something in the Egyptian society or Egyptian culture. And Tariq was saying in Jordan, for example, it has to do with conspiracy-oriented negative reaction. So this could be an interesting topic for further, like other like on that particular theme. How is the national discourse towards COVID influenced certain aspects of life? Like, for example, in the Egyptian context, this discourse was actually prevalent among people who are just taking this lightly and very like in a humor manner. For example, one would meet his friend on the street and they want to hug and they would say exactly, in spite of the corona, I must hug you, something like that. So they were taking this very, very satirically.
Yes, Dr. Phil.
Yeah, actually, I do have a question for you. Ayman Mohamed, I was also, part of what we're talking about is how culture, certain cultural practices, make their way into education and affect the learning process, whether it's positively or negatively. I think that's part of what we're talking about when we're talking about people, being scared, students being scared to ask questions. Would you say there are any cultural, I'm just curious to know, are there any cultural practices that go from the home and somehow go into the schools and also affect the learning in Egypt that affect the learning process?
Cultural, I'm not sure I could give particular example. Nothing except the way we look at education. We still have this mentality of looking at education as memorization and accumulation of scores. And so the home culture, the Egyptian home culture regarding education is my son must memorize this curriculum very well, so he can write in the exam very well, so he can get the score in the high school that will give him the high or like the top college. And so it's always the case that even when the parents get with their kids, it's not about understanding. Just I want to make sure that my kid is memorizing everything right. So that's the cultural point, that it's hard to change.
Okay, thank you so much again for sharing your time with us this evening. I don't know if Dr. Choti has something to share with the group. Your microphone is off.
Okay. I really want to say thank you so much again and again for our presenters, for the wonderful discussion that you facilitated this evening. You've really given us, what is it? Okay. Sorry. It's good that you've given us a whole picture of what is going on in your countries. And as I said, this is not just Egypt and Tanzania. You're speaking for us, and you've given us an opportunity to also reflect on what is going on in our own situations, in our own countries. So this is helpful. That's why we are here every other 2 weeks to discuss different topics, but we learn a lot. I've mentioned this before, and I'll keep talking about it. I've learned a lot by hosting this program. And I think Jorem and others who have been here long enough can bear witness, because we have different speakers. We focus on mostly actually same countries in different years, different speakers, sometimes same speakers, but we end up with a totally different discussion. And we keep learning what's new in those regions all the time. And these are the informations actually that keep us informed. If somebody asked me about Tanzania and Egypt right now, I'll be happy to say I do know something, because I learned from the experts, people that at least have the information from that country, than reading from internet or somewhere else, another source. So we're really privileged to have a community, a group that you can reach out to when we want to have a discussion like this. Also want to thank all of the people that have joined us. I see some have left. Actually, it's time. So we have an announcement that I can make. We have one more African Tea Time that is coming up next week on Thursday, and it's going to focus on Zambia and Nigeria. The discussion is on the COVID-19 and the impact on food security. Let's know in terms of now availability, how has it disrupted the food chain? What's really happening in terms of affording and being able to sustain families in terms of food sources. So I think that's all I can say, Jorem. I don't know if you have anything else.
No, apart from again saying thank you so much to everyone that attended and to our presenters. Oh my God, I couldn't ask for more. You guys have really, put us down there. We now understand what's going on. Thank you so much. I know in Tanzania it's really late. You know, I don't know, Dr. Ayman, I think is in East Lansing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
it's
yes.
early here, just 6
yes,
o'clock.
just 6 o'clock. Yeah. Thank you so much again. And, you know, let's see what happens next week. But a lot has been learned today.
Please join us next week if you can.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. All right.
That was fun. Thanks.
Yep.